Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephania Cox. Here are today's top stories. Russian and Ukrainian delegates are going to meet for a second round of talks on Thursday, and Russia releases casualty figures for the first time since the war started, but they contradict Western estimates. U.S. lawmakers are pushing for a fresh wave of penalties against Russia. What comes next, and what are they warning? Could the United States be financing Russia's invasion of Ukraine? One economic expert says yes. We'll hear what he has to say. Chelsea Soccer Club is up for sale. The UK is calling for sanctions against its current owner, a Russian businessman. President Biden's Supreme Court nominee met with key senators today. It marks her first step toward confirmation to the nation's highest court. How much support does she have, and how soon could she be sworn in? Russia and Ukraine agreed to meet for a second round of talks tomorrow. They plan to meet in Belarus, near the border with Poland. And Russian forces continue to bombard Ukraine's second largest city. Here's the latest.
Ukrainian delegates are on their way to Belarus for a second round of talks with Russia on Thursday. They will meet in a region bordering Poland. Russian delegates already arrived on Wednesday.
Today, in the second half of the day, closer to evening, our delegation will be in place to await Ukrainian negotiators.
The first round of talks didn't yield any immediate agreements. Ukraine's foreign minister says that they won't accept any Russian ultimatums and that Russia's demands remain the same. The war now enters its seventh day, and Russian forces continue to advance on major Ukrainian cities.
The enemy is pulling its troops closer to the capital. Bila Tserkva was shelled last night. Fighting continued in Bucha and Hostomel. We're getting ready, and we will defend our city.
A senior Pentagon official said in a conference call on Wednesday that there haven't been significant changes on the ground in the past 2 days. Ukraine's second largest city, Kyiv, suffered heavy damage from Russian shelling on Wednesday. Russia's attacks hit several administrative buildings, including the regional police and intelligence headquarters. At least 21 people were killed in 24 hours.
The enemy is shelling the city without selecting targets. Multiple rocket launchers and aviation are operating because, as I understand, there's an order to break people psychologically and to seed psychological terror.
Russia on Wednesday released its casualty figures for the first time since the war started. They also said more than 2,800 Ukrainian troops have been killed. This contradicts Ukraine's claims that almost 6,000 Russian soldiers have been killed.
Unfortunately, we have losses among our comrades taking part in the special military operation. 498 Russian military deceased in the line of duty.
Russia says it has captured Kherson, a port city in the south and provincial capital. Ukraine denies this, and the Pentagon official confirms that the city's status is contested at the moment. On Wednesday, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution condemning Russia for the invasion and demanded that it stop the war. Out of 193 members voted in favor. 5 countries, including Russia and Belarus, voted against, and 35 countries, including China, abstained from the vote.
Russia is bombarding Ukraine, but its invading forces are being met by a strong Ukrainian resistance. Some military experts say they're surprised that Russia hasn't been able to achieve its goals. NTD's Miguel Moreno reports.
Reporters have tracked a Russian military convoy said to be dozens of miles long headed to Kyiv. But in a Wednesday update, the Pentagon confirmed that the immense line of Russian forces has met with trouble.
That convoy, but more broadly speaking, the northern push by the Russians down towards the south, towards Kyiv, remains stalled.
Kirby says the invading line hasn't made visible progress in the last 24 to 36 hours, based on Pentagon estimates. The convoy might be bogged down for several reasons. Kirby pointed to 3 possibilities. 1, Russian forces are regrouping, thinking about how to make up for lost time. 2, they're dealing with unexpected logistics and sustainment challenges. And 3, Ukrainian forces are slowing the convoy. Nothing solid, but the Pentagon says it has some indications that Ukrainians are slowing down that immense Russian line.
I've never seen more courageous people on the face of this earth fighting for their country, fighting for freedom and fighting for liberty.
Retired Navy Lieutenant Stephen Rogers says some military experts are surprised by what's transpired.
I've got to tell you, a lot of former intelligence officers that I have spoken with and military professionals are rather surprised that the Russian military has not been able to really achieve their goals. Look, they've got hundreds of thousands of troops in Ukraine now. They're using every piece of equipment they have to topple that government, and they haven't been able to do that. So what I see was a perceived strong military in Russia, but it's truly a weak military. There doesn't seem to be any strategy that's working. Their tactics aren't working. And on the other side of it, now you have the Ukrainian military. Small in numbers, didn't have that much equipment, and yet they seem to be doing a good job.
But Russia's assault in southern Ukraine is facing less resistance. That's according to Kirby.
As we look at this, we have to be pragmatic. The Ukrainians are fighting bravely and creatively. The Russians have a significant amount of combat power applied in Ukraine, and they still have some significant combat power that they have not engaged in the fight. And we need to be mindful of that.
Death counts are being cited by the press, but the Pentagon says it has zero confidence in any of those numbers. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
U.S. senators are vowing to further punishment for Russia. Among them, a war crimes probe. NTD's Iris Tao has the details.
What Putin is doing is a war crime.
Senator Lindsey Graham is calling for Putin to be investigated by the International Criminal Court for war crimes.
And if we give him a pass on the war crimes that are being committed in front of us all every night on television, I can only imagine what China will think. When it comes to dictators, you need to make it personal to them.
Joining him Wednesday to introduce the resolution is the only Ukrainian American in Congress. She's calling for the international community to step it up.
You have to some leadership and backbone and step up. And I think we as a country need to see who are our friends, who are not.
And they're not the only ones on the move. Another group of Senate Republicans on Wednesday called for secondary sanctions on Russian banks.
It is time we drop the hammer and completely shut down the economy in Russia.
Energy is another focus. They're calling for the U.S. to stop purchasing Russian oil and gas.
We are much better and stronger as a nation if we are selling energy to our friends than if we're having to buy it from our enemies.
And another reason for a strong stance against Russia, the senators say, is to deter Beijing.
If he gets away with it in Ukraine, I promise you China will take Taiwan.
And here's Senator John Kennedy cautioning that it might not be a coincidence that Russia invaded Ukraine just as the U.S. started to pivot to the Indo-Pacific.
If you think that Russia and China are not aligned, you'll never own your own home.
The lawmakers are also working on a package that will send billions in aid for Ukraine. They'll be voting on it next week. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
The conflict in Ukraine is pushing oil prices higher. Today, a barrel of crude topped $110, soaring 8% in just one day. Russia is one of the world's largest oil exporters, but Western countries haven't put any direct sanctions on oil exports because they rely heavily on Russian oil. So what tools does the U.S. have to counter Putin? American Thought Leaders host Jan Jekielek sat down with Larry Kudlow, a top economic advisor for former President Trump. NTD's Chenny Wu brings us the highlights.
Could the U.S. be aiding Russian leader Vladimir Putin in his invasion of Ukraine? Larry Kudlow, former director of the U.S. National Economic Council, says yes.
We are financing this by our stupid energy policies, which have raised the price of oil unnecessarily.
Kudlow explains that Putin continues to profit from skyrocketing oil prices, providing the Kremlin with the financial means to invade countries such as Ukraine.
When oil prices are low, you don't hear from Putin. When oil prices are high, that's how they make their money. That's all they have.
Russia has been hit with a string of sanctions from the West following its invasion of Ukraine, but the U.S. has stopped short of directly sanctioning Russia's energy sector, a step that would severely hurt Russia's ability to generate revenue. Biden has defended his decision to preserve access to Russian energy in order to limit the pain the American people are feeling at the gas pump, but said Wednesday that banning Russian oil imports is not off the table.
So go back in time. In 2008, oil got to $150 a barrel. What happened? Putin took Georgia. Then oil prices fell back, and then the fracking revolution started, and we didn't hear from Putin for years. But then, in 2014, for a variety of reasons, oil prices jumped back to $100 a barrel. Well, Putin takes Crimea. He has the money from his oil profits to do that. Then Trump comes in and we have energy independence and we're, full throttle with the drillers and the frackers. You don't hear from Putin. In the last year, as Biden comes in and he runs this jihad against fossil fuels, so we're at $100 a barrel and rising. So Putin's got the money to go into Ukraine.
But is there a solution?
The ultimate weapon here is to sanction the central bank, because that'll stop payments. We're afraid to do that because of the oil factor.
In order to put sanctions on the Russian central bank and restrict the country financially, Kudlow says the U.S. needs to bring its own energy production to full throttle and be less reliant upon other countries.
There is no world without fossil fuels. But Biden bought into this far-left agenda. It was a gift to Putin.
Data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration shows that the United States increased its oil imports from Russia by about 28% in the first 11 months of 2021. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
To watch the full interview with Larry Kudlow, you can go to epochtv.com/ATL. And Russian businessman Roman Abramovich is planning to sell Chelsea Football Club, an English professional soccer team. It comes amid growing calls for the UK to sanction him after the Russian invasion. Abramovich is a metals magnate. Abramovich promises to donate money from the sale to help victims of the war in Ukraine. The funds will address victims' immediate needs and support the long-term work of recovery. He says the decision to sell the club is in the best interests of the club, the fans, the employees, and the club's sponsors and partners. Abramovich also says he will not ask for repayment of the loans he's made to the club. They total roughly $2 billion. Abramovich is one of Russia's most powerful businessmen, with a net worth of $13 billion. A Swiss business tycoon says he's considering buying the club. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has emerged as a fierce war leader. He was elected less than 3 years ago. Before the election, he was a comedian with no political experience, making this transformation even more remarkable. NTD's Joy Duguid takes a look at the rise of Ukraine's wartime president.
The morning after Russian missiles rained down on Kyiv, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the nation in his favorite style, the selfie video. He told Ukrainians that he was staying put in the capital. The video received 3 million views on Instagram in 1 hour.
Lately, there has been a lot of fake information online that I call on our army to lay down arms and to evacuate. Listen, I'm here. We will not lay down the weapons. We will defend our state, because our weapon is our truth.
Zelensky's decision to remain in Kyiv and his family's decision to stay in Ukraine has moved many and inspired Ukrainians to fight for their country.
Today, Russia started an invasion of Ukraine. Putin started a war against Ukraine, against the whole democratic world.
Zelensky has rallied the nation and given voice to Ukrainian defiance of Russian invasion. It has been an unlikely transformation for him. Zelensky is from a Russian-speaking Jewish family and graduated with a law degree, but he didn't become a lawyer. He co-founded a successful TV production company and produced dozens of shows for Ukraine and Russia. The turning point came in 2015 when starring in sitcom Servant of the People made him a true public figure. He played a schoolteacher turned president after his student posted a video of him ranting about corruption in politics. In real life, Zelensky named his party the Servant of the People Party in the 2019 presidential election. His candidacy was initially seen as a joke by some, but he ended up with 73% of the vote. At the beginning of the crisis, some Ukrainians feared he was out of his depth against veteran Russian President Vladimir Putin. But his defiance and calm presence in social media videos have won plaudits even from self-described skeptics.
Good evening to everyone. The leader of the faction is here. The head of the presidential office is here. Prime Minister Shmyhal is here. Podolyak is here. The president is here.
Zelensky has been a prolific social media user throughout his time in politics. Now, he and his team are posting videos trying to give reassurance. His style stands in contrast to that of Putin. The Russian leader has often kept even close officials on the other side of a long table in meetings during the global health crisis. Zelensky has used direct and from-the-heart messages to press the global community to do more for Ukraine.
Do prove that you are with us. Do prove that you will not let us go. Do prove that you indeed are Europeans. And then life will win over death. And light will win over darkness. Glory be to Ukraine.
His speech received a standing ovation from the European Parliament. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
Americans are paying higher and higher prices for basic goods. And with a lot of topics covered in the State of the Union address, President Biden made sure to mention inflation. NTD's Arlene Richards brings us the details of Biden's proposed solutions.
President Joe Biden called on Congress to deal with the increasing costs for Americans in his first State of the Union speech Tuesday. The president said getting prices under control is his top priority.
Tonight, I'm announcing a crackdown on those companies overcharging American businesses and consumers.
He demanded that companies lower their costs, not their wages, to help combat inflation. Biden called on Congress to pass parts of his Build Back Better agenda, which didn't get bipartisan support, and pushed for lower car costs. Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson says his constituents have a lot of concerns about rising costs.
People feel this acutely. In my home state of Louisiana, the cost of everything has skyrocketed. This affects real families. They're deeply concerned about their safety and security of their families, their children, because of all of the chaos overseas and even here in our cities with spiking crime rates.
Biden plans to tackle Johnson's concerns, especially high costs. But Professor Nicholas Giordano says his plan is too good to be true.
Let's just give Americans everything and everything's going to be okay. And that's not the way it really works.
He says inflation is so high because of the trillions of dollars of money that's been printed over the last 2 years, and says that Americans are feeling inflation in every product they buy.
And for every penny that gas prices increase, that's $1 billion that's taken out of the economy that could have went to other things, like going out to dinner, like taking the family to a movie or going on vacation. The American people are strapped right now, and they're living paycheck to paycheck.
One thing Biden is emphasizing is semiconductor production in America. And Giordano agrees this would be a good thing, but says it takes time to get facilities up and running. Also, part of the problem is,
when we look at the supply chains, is the fact that the government was the one that deemed what was essential and what wasn't essential during the pandemic. And something that seemed non-essential yesterday, turns out it's very essential today. And that's part of our problem. We're playing catch-up.
Giordano says he doesn't believe Biden's plans will lower any costs because we need smart policies that tackle the country's debt problem, and we should stop spending more money than we take in every year. Arlene Richards, NTD News, New York.
President Biden's Supreme Court nominee met with top senators today. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer wants to fast-track her nomination. He's hoping that some Republicans will vote to confirm her as the next liberal-leaning justice to replace Justice Breyer. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more details.
Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson on Capitol Hill today met with senators. First, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, who's pushing for a swift confirmation.
Seeing her in person is a great thing.
Jackson later met with top Republican leader Mitch McConnell, then top senators on the Judiciary Committee, Chairman Dick Durbin and Ranking Member Charles Grassley. The hearing to confirm her will start at the end of the month, and she could be confirmed soon after that. Schumer's aiming for confirmation before April 8th. If confirmed, Jackson would be the first black woman seated to the Supreme Court. Biden made the promise to nominate a black woman to the nation's highest court because he says it's long overdue. But some are wary of this approach, making a purposeful decision based on demographics.
Their external characteristics, and that's moving in the wrong direction, and we really have to stop that and start asking ourselves, what makes a person who they are? Is it their skin? Is it their hair? Or is it their brain?
Jackson is now serving as a judge on D.C.'s U.S. Court of Appeals, a position she was confirmed to just last year. And for that confirmation, she did have some Republican support. Now Schumer is hoping to have GOP support this time around.
But some of the most conservative judges have said amazing things about her. So I think she deserves support from the other side of the aisle.
No Republican has publicly announced their support for Jackson, but Senator Susan Collins from Maine says her vote's undecided, and she praises Judge Jackson's qualifications, while another senator vows to have an open mind.
She deserves a very careful look, a very deep dive, and I'll provide fresh eyes to that evaluation and hope that I'll be able to support her in the final analysis.
And only 50 votes are needed to confirm Judge Jackson. So if all 50 Democrats are on board with this, which it's looking like they are, Schumer will be able to move this confirmation through quickly, and we could see Jackson confirmed in the next couple of weeks. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Texas opens the U.S. primary election season with wins for Republican Governor Greg Abbott and Democrat challenger Beto O'Rourke. They will face off for Texas governor in the general election. Abbott and O'Rourke easily won their respective parties' nominations. Abbott is now in a commanding position as he seeks a third term. He begins his campaign run with more than $50 million, and he's campaigning on an agenda that appeals to America's largest Republican state. After the primary win, Abbott told supporters that Republicans sent a message. His campaign says they want to keep Texas on a path of opportunity like Governor Abbott has provided over the past 8 years. Abbott also spoke about education and Republican support for law enforcement. O'Rourke criticized Abbott on several points at a primary watch party. He spoke about Abbott's handling of last winter's power outages, rising energy costs, the quality of education in the state, and gun violence. And coming up, the People's Convoy is now in Indiana, where it's expected to converge with more convoys from across the country. Their final destination, Washington, D.C., is just 2 stops away. We hear from supporters on the ground. And the NBA's biggest individual award. Who is the front runner for Most Valuable Player? Will we have a repeat winner? That and more coming up on NTD News. The People's Convoy is now in Indiana, and it will be stopping in just 2 more cities before arriving in Washington, D.C. NTD's Jason Perry is on the road following the convoy as it makes its way to the nation's capital. Tonight, he brings us personal stories from convoy supporters.
USA! USA!
The organizer of the People's Convoy reminded everyone how close they are to the Capitol.
We got a lot coming up after this stop. A lot. Ohio, and then Hagerstown. Everybody knows about Hagerstown. That's 40 miles from the Beltway.
He's referring to the 64-mile Capitol Beltway that surrounds Washington, D.C., which appears to be the final destination for the multiple convoys traveling across America. There was an open mic-style event where guests shared their personal experiences and reasons they support the convoy. Many of them prayed for those going to D.C.
For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. In Jesus' name, amen.
And may you watch over them and bless them with safety
security through the rest of this ride. Amen.
Amen. Woo! This is 50-20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good.
James Williams is autistic, and he says he was injured by a vaccine as a child.
I came here on a bus.
We also spoke to some truck drivers to see why they decided to ride to D.C.
And I seen all those trucks roll past, and I saw all those people in Springfield, and I'm like, wow, like a fourth of the town is out here. I said, I've got to be a part of this. That was just God telling me that this is what I got to do.
I got good friends of mine that are nurses that have lost their job. I seen a news article on TV a few months back where there was a boy in line for a heart transplant. He was denied because his parents didn't vaccinate him. I mean, and I started thinking, this isn't the America I grew up in. And I don't want that for my kids. I don't want that for my grandkids. And I don't want it for any American, because this is America and we're supposed to have free choice here. This is the land of the free, home of the brave. Yeah, this isn't a right thing or a left thing. We encourage all to come. We're trying to unite as one. It doesn't matter what color you are, what ethnicity you are. This is a we the people movement, and all are welcome. I don't care.
I'm here in Monrovia, Indiana, right outside of Indianapolis. The state of Indiana is called the Crossroads of America because so many highways intersect here. Now that the guests have finished speaking, people are still hanging out. They were barbecuing over here earlier, and some people have been eating some of the food donations over here. Lots and lots of trucks are here. I know that the People's Convoy is here, and other convoys are expected to also meet here before continuing their trip to D.C. Jason Perry, NTD News, Indiana.
The NBA's Most Valuable Player Award will be announced during the playoffs, which start next month. But at this point, there are several clear frontrunners for the league's biggest individual award. NTD's Dave Martin breaks it down.
The MVP isn't just handed to the best player in the league. If that were the case, LeBron James would have more than 4. Team wins and games played are a major part of the inexact formula, though individual stats are still the major driver. Last year, Denver's Nikola Jokic won MVP, and it's fair to say he's the frontrunner this year. The 6'11 center is 12th in scoring, 2nd in rebounding, and 6th in assists, as the entire Denver team revolves around his performance. His only negative is that the injury-riddled Nuggets sit just 6th in the Western Conference. Philly's Joel Embiid finished runner-up last year in his best showing yet. His chances of winning it this year went up when the Sixers acquired James Harden from Brooklyn. Now with a star to pair him with, Philly has a great chance to catch Miami for the top spot in the East, which would greatly boost his chances. Individually, Embiid leads the league in scoring and is 8th in rebounding, but has already missed 12 games. Milwaukee's Giannis Antetokounmpo already has won 2 MVP awards, and at age 27 could be in line for another. He's right behind Embiid for 2nd place in scoring, while ranking 7th in rebounding, though his defending champion Bucks are a disappointing 4th in the East. 5-time All-Star DeMar DeRozan would be the most surprising MVP should he take home the hardware, having only garnered MVP votes twice before while never being named to the All-NBA first team. But the 32-year-old currently ranks 4th in scoring, and with some incredible clutch shooting, has the surprising Chicago Bulls in line for their first playoff spot in 5 years. Finally, we have Chris Paul. The 36-year-old has had several tough luck postseason injuries, but his recent thumb fracture might be his most untimely regular season injury ever. The Suns made a miraculous turnaround last year when Paul joined the team, snapping a 10-year playoff drought by garnering the 2nd-best record in the West. This year, he had the Suns on top of the NBA when he went down, and the hope is he's back by playoff time. Individually, he leads the league in assists while averaging 15 points a game. Dave Martin, NTD News, New York.
Coming up, California's northern county of Shasta has sworn in a new supervisor after a recall. Locals say they want an elected official who will better represent them. The first private astronaut mission will take off at the end of the month. The public gets a preview of the planned trip with the private company that partnered with NASA. That and more on NTD News.
Here's what a reader writes to best-selling author James Cook about his new book, The Great Gold Comeback, Bankruptcy of the Welfare State. There is no way I could ever properly express my thanks to you for the Gold Comeback book and all that you have written within it. What a real treasure. Get this hard-hitting volume absolutely free. It covers economics, inflation, socialism, welfarism, capitalism, crashes, panics, interventionism, and crisis. Regularly $29. Yours free. Call 1-800-328-1860.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Oh, hey, doesn't it feel like there's communists everywhere? In fact, the Chinese Communist Party has been subverting America from every angle. So whether it's compromising our politicians, controlling Hollywood, manipulating Wall Street, or infiltrating our schools, they have stopped at nothing to take down America. And I believe that in order for us to not become like China, we need citizens who know the truth. So go on over to getepic.com, stay informed with a subscription to the Epic Times, and you will get instant access to this infographic.
Recalls have been held up and down the Golden State. Most recently, Shasta County in Northern California recalled a county supervisor. Locals say he did not represent them or their interests. A new supervisor was sworn in on Tuesday.
Greeted with cheers and applause, Tim Garman was sworn in on March 1st after county supervisors unanimously certified the results of the recent recall.
Over the last 2 years, supervisor votes of 3-2 in favor of state policies and against local citizenry continually denied our local interests. This recall was one step of many toward restoring local government to its proper role.
For 4 months, a recall petition organized by the group Recall Shasta County gathered signatures to recall then District 2 Supervisor Leonard Moti. Locals expressed that Moti did not represent their interests at county board meetings when it came to pandemic-related policies. The Shasta County Clerk certified election results on February 17th. 56% of votes were in favor of recalling Moti. 38% of voters chose Garman to replace him. In an interview with CNN, Moti says he is disheartened by the recall efforts.
It's very disheartening to me to have a group be able to spend that much money to personally assault my reputation that I worked for 44 years to build in my hometown.
Recall Shasta County also attempted to remove 2 other supervisors, Joe Chimenti and Mary Rickert, but the recall effort did not submit petition signatures for Chimenti and Rickert.
A private space company is letting the public in on their plans for the first private astronaut mission. NASA signed an agreement with the company last year. Here's more.
During a virtual press conference, Axiom Space hosted a preview for launching Axiom Mission 1, or AX-1, the first all-private astronaut mission to the International Space Station, or ISS. Michael Lopez Alegria, the Vice President of Business Development for Axiom Space from Orange County, Los Angeles, will be commanding the mission.
This has really been a dream come true for me, and it's been amazing to see both the crew and the company mature and gel as we get ready for this very important step into the future.
He joins 3 other multinational crew members on a 10-day mission to complete more than 25 health and science research experiments for microgravity. Aside from the commander, they all paid approximately $55 million for the trip to space.
We are not space tourists. I think there's an important role for space tourism, but it is not what Axiom is about. The crewmates, my crewmates have worked very hard. I've been super impressed with their diligence and their commitment. And they're busy people, and they've taken a lot of time out of their lives to focus on this. And it's definitely not a vacation for them.
The crew will focus on life science and technology research like stem cells, cardiac health, and spacecraft self-assembly that would become a pathfinder for opportunities in low Earth orbit and open a space technology ecosystem. The crew will also bring back life science samples for NASA that have been in orbit and a nitrogen tank for refurbishing.
That will be operating very independently from NASA. But once it gets close to the ISS, then NASA has responsibility for the safety of the spacecraft, the ISS, as well as the crew members when they come.
Last May, NASA partnered with Axiom Space with the mission to take place no earlier than January 2022. Axiom Space is a privately funded space infrastructure developer headquartered in Houston, Texas. The launch is scheduled for March 30th at 2:46 p.m. from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
As Russian troops continue their advance toward the capital, volunteers in Kyiv are distributing food and aid to medics, the military, and those in need. The assistance was especially welcome during the weekend curfew. Here's NTD's Neil Woodrow with this report.
Hundreds of thousands of civilians have sought safety at night in Kyiv's subway system and other makeshift shelters across the country. During a weekend curfew, volunteers were some of the few allowed to move across Kyiv. A volunteer says people needed food since they had no possibility to go out.
We had to bring them food so they can eat. Medics, military volunteers, everyone had to eat. That's why everyone needs food now.
They load up the van ready to go into the subway. Then they start the distribution. Oksana went to a shelter on Saturday and stayed there until Monday evening.
From Saturday to Monday, the situation with food was difficult. We had little storage. Water was brought to us, but with food we had to eat what we had.
This restaurant manager is also giving her support.
We decided that businesses should support our army because it's extremely important for saving our country. Because if we don't help our army now, then we won't exist. There won't be our businesses. There won't be any lives left.
Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
An increasing number of international sporting bodies are moving to bar Russian athletes from competing in international events. Others say they will allow Russian athletes to compete, but under a neutral flag. NTD's Eddie Aitken gives an overview of how the sports world is responding to Russia's war.
The International Paralympic Committee says Russian and Belarusian athletes can compete as neutrals at the Winter Paralympics in Beijing, despite calls to ban them following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, for which Belarus has been a key staging area. The International Olympic Committee has recommended sports federations suspend teams and athletes from the two countries, Russia and Belarus. Russia's Olympic Committee said it considers this ethnic discrimination. But how are the other sports responding? Football governing bodies FIFA and UEFA suspended Russia's national teams and clubs. The move will likely exclude Russia from this year's World Cup and the Women's Euro 2020 tournament. In tennis, all players will be allowed to continue to compete, including men's world number 1 Daniil Medvedev, who is Russian, and Irina Sabalenka from Belarus, but not under the name or flag of their nations. The International Tennis Federation cancelled all of its events in Russia and Belarus, suspended the country's memberships, banning them from competing. A similar ban by World Rugby and suspension of the membership of Russian Rugby Union. Motorsports governing body FIA said Russian and Belarusian drivers could compete in a neutral capacity as long as they committed to its principles of peace and political neutrality. A race scheduled for September at Sochi's Olympic Park will be dropped from the calendar for the first time since its debut in 2014. Russian and Belarusian ice hockey teams and clubs are banned from international competition. Russia's hosting rights to the 2023 World Junior Championship have been revoked, and organisers will look for a new host in the next months. Meanwhile, the International Judo Federation cancelled the Grand Slam in Kazan, Russia, which should have taken place in May. It also suspended Russian President Vladimir Putin's status as honorary president and ambassador of the federation. Similarly, World
Warner Brothers is halting the release of The Batman in Russia just days before opening night. The Walt Disney Company, Sony Pictures, and Paramount have also said that they would pause the release of films there. This report comes from NTD's Neil Woodrow.
Many Hollywood studios have significant upcoming releases set to debut internationally in the coming weeks. The Batman premiered in London last week and is due to come out Friday in the UK and US. A spokesperson for the Walt Disney Company said in a statement that Pixar's Russia theatrical releases, including Turning Red, was pausing. Paramount Pictures' The Lost City and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 are among other films pulled. Pamela McClintock, senior film writer for The Hollywood Reporter, said Warner Brothers was still planning on releasing Batman on March the 3rd.
But yesterday afternoon, in what became a big game of dominoes, Disney announced late in the afternoon that it was pulling its releases temporarily. And Warner Brothers quickly followed suit and said they were pausing the Batman release. Sony followed with saying they were going to pull their movies. And then very early this morning, Paramount did the same.
Russia typically ranks in the top dozen countries globally in box office. Spider-Man No Way Home has grossed over £35 million in Russia. She says, apart from ethical questions, it's going to be hard for studios to access revenue.
The European Union has severed ties. Russia can no longer use SWIFT, which is a banking system. So it almost becomes a moot point, because if you're playing your movies there, how do you get your money out?
McClintock added that the images we're seeing in Ukraine are horrific and thinks that's the right decision for Hollywood studios to pull their movies. In addition to pulling their Russian releases, the Cannes Film Festival said on Tuesday that no Russian delegations would be welcomed this year, and the ban would remain unless the war of assault ends in conditions that will satisfy the Ukrainian people. The Cannes Film Festival is scheduled for May. The Venice Film Festival announced free screenings of a film about the 2014 conflict in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
Officials confirm a cargo ship carrying thousands of vehicles has now sunk into the Atlantic Ocean. The ship caught fire near Portugal's Azores collection of islands. The Portuguese Navy confirmed on social media that the ship known as the Felicity Ace sunk outside the Azores. Naval officials say the ocean depth is about 10,000 feet in that area. The merchant ship was on its way to the United States from Germany. It was carrying about 4,000 cars. There were reports saying the ship was also carrying electric vehicles. A spokesperson for the vessel's operator told Bloomberg the weather was rough, but the ship sinking was a surprise. The Portuguese Navy says the ship left behind debris and a small patch of oily waste. The site is now being monitored by Portuguese and EU environmental agencies. The ship first caught fire on February 16th. The cause of the blaze remains unclear. And car dealers have been buying each other at a record pace, largely bigger ones taking over smaller ones. Why is this happening, and what does it mean for car buyers? NTD's Colin Frederickson has more.
Car dealers are betting billions that the physical dealership business model is here to stay, despite the internet and direct-to-consumer model. U.S. dealers are acquiring each other at a record pace without closing physical stores.
We saw over 355 dealership acquisitions, which included multiple franchises, and the public auto retailers, of which there are 6, acquired over $8 billion worth of dealerships in 2021. That is by far the most they've ever acquired in a single year, by a order of magnitude of 2 or 3 times prior years.
Aaron Kerrigan is the founder of Kerrigan Advisors, the firm that made this discovery. Kerrigan says the top 6 publicly traded auto retailers have outpaced the S&P 500 significantly.
AutoNation is the largest auto retailer in the country, followed by Lithia. And Lithia has been the most acquisitive of all of the public companies. We also have Asbury, which has been very acquisitive as well.
Kerrigan says the prior peak number of transactions was 288 in 2020, and that many sellers were small and family-owned.
It's become harder
for many independent dealers to survive. And in many cases, these big groups have just offered tremendous money to buy out even the stronger independent dealers.
Paul Eisenstein is editor-in-chief at the Detroit Bureau. Eisenstein says there will be more investments in technology as a result. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
Coming up, what may be the biggest puppet ever made its debut Tuesday morning to a crowd of screaming children. We'll see what the commotion was all about. And at this year's Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, 2 new pieces of music technology are on display. One teaches users how to play an instrument, while the other allows them to create music out of thin air. All that and more here on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Retailers, shopping channels, and now even banks have tried to cancel myself and MyPillow. During these times, your support has meant everything to us. So my employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you by passing the savings directly on to you. We're selling the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have my towels with proprietary technology, which makes them soft and absorbent. Towels that work, what a concept. They're made with USA cotton and come in a variety of awesome colors. My 6-piece towel set is regularly $109.99, now just $39.99 with your promo code. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer. If you do it right now, I'm going to include a free gift with your purchase. Thank you and God bless.
Percy the Porcupine may be the largest puppet in the world. The puppet was unveiled in Los Angeles Tuesday morning as part of a collaboration with the San Diego Zoo.
3, 2, 1, I think she's here!
Percy the Porcupine puppet debuted to a crowd of excited schoolchildren on March 1st. The 2-story-tall porcupine was introduced to mark the opening of a new attraction at the San Diego Zoo.
So we thought, what a great ambassador, what a great representation, a 2-story version of the prehensile-tailed porcupine to come down here and excite people for what they're going to see at Wildlife Explorers Base Camp.
Percy was built over 6 months and modeled after a South American species. It came from the Muppets creators at Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
Well, like I say, it's huge. It's about 20 foot by 20 foot. The thousands of hours. I mean, just applying all those quills, making the quills and applying them.
But the team's goal wasn't just size.
Obviously, you can see this porcupine is ridiculously cute, and it is modeled exactly after the prehensile-tailed porcupine that we have at the San Diego Zoo, one of the animals you can meet up close and personal.
The zoo is opening a new section intended to teach families about the interactions and interdependence of humans, plants, and animals. One of the animals guests will learn about is the prehensile-tailed porcupine. Animal handlers brought out one for kids to see.
And we also had the reference material from the porcupine down at the zoo, down at the base camp. And so we made an attempt to try and capture, if you like, the cuteness of the real porcupine and try and translate that on such a huge scale, you know.
Building such a large porcupine puppet was itself a massive task. A whole house's worth of paint went into the project.
Well, all sorts of things go into making it. Yeah, it's one of the biggest animal puppets that we've made at the Creature Shop. It's got about 2,000 quills, and as you can appreciate, on this scale, everything has to be custom made. We can't just buy things off the shelf, you know.
Percy will make another media stop before reaching her permanent habitat at the San Diego Zoo.
Musical technology is taking center stage at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona with 2 new devices. One teaches users how to play an instrument, while the other allows them to create music out of thin air. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
Rafael Ramirez is an associate professor at the Music and Machine Learning Lab at University Pompeu Fabra. He was part of a project to create Skynote, software that can teach users how to play musical instruments. Sensors feed Skynote data so it can assess sound quality, pitch, timing, posture, and even the learner's bowing technique.
For example, for sound quality, the system, the algorithm extracts features that are useful to detect if you are playing a good sound, a bad sound, a bright sound, a warm sound, what kind of sound you are playing, and it gives you feedback on that.
Ramirez has brought Skynote to the 4 years from now section at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. It's an area where startups like this can network and meet potential customers and investors.
And even in a 10-minute session, it was shown that the students practicing with technology improved significantly more than the students without the technology.
Visitors were also able to try MicTic One wristbands, a device that allows them to create real music out of thin air. Movement is transformed into a unique sound with the help of MicTic's wearable wristbands.
So MicTic is essentially a spatial sound mapping technology, and the purpose of our company is to reshape your relationship with music, right? So when you think about today, you consume music without thinking twice.
They believe it's the first wearable device that allows people to truly immerse themselves in music, whether they are a serious musician or someone who just wants to have fun.
In a sense, our target market or audience, the everyday music fan, right? Instead of just listening, we'd love to have you actually be part of the music. And so starting with just really music fans in a sense, of course the TikTokers, your video content creators, because you can express yourself in a creative way. That's a big part of it for us.
The Mobile World Congress is happening in Barcelona and runs until March 3rd. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.